Years ago, when I was working in Detroit for Ernst & Young, I would sometimes go to a church that was nearby my hotel and participate in a Bible study. Well, one evening, after we had talked about the scripture we were studying that day, the woman who was leading the study asked all of us, what did the word saved mean to us? And most of the people in our circle responded by talking about the day or the time when they received Jesus into their heart, which was also a very vivid experience for me. But when she got to me, I said, most of the time I don't think about being saved in the past tense. My experience of being saved is something that happens to me every day, sometimes many times a day. She looked at me. She seemed a bit concerned. And then all of the other people in the circle of the class, they too were very quiet. And finally she said to me, I will pray for you. And I said, thank you. I can use all the prayers I can get. I thought about that many times later also. When I was a child, I never had any doubts in my mind that I was saved because I had had that experience of feeling Jesus coming into my heart and being forgiven of my sins. The biggest problem that I had growing up was I was worried about falling from grace. I was constantly concerned about whether my being saved was a secure thing. And especially when I did something that I really knew I shouldn't do, when I did some kind of sin that I knew was not right and God would not approve of, then I would wonder if I had fallen from grace forever, even though I had been saved. Well, in our story for today, we see a family that looks like the whole family is saved. We see a loving father, and we see strong and wonderful family ties, and two brothers, and a rich inheritance. This is a wonderful scene that Jesus tells us about, but that scene changes dramatically when the younger son says to his father, give me my share of the inheritance. Listen with me to the story of the prodigal son as it's told in Luke chapter 15. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and he hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and I will go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. So he set off, and he went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. And he ran and he put his arms around him and kissed him. And then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. Now the elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard the music and the dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has got him back safe and sound." And then he became angry, and he refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, "Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command, yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him." Then the father said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The prodigal son is the last of three parables that Jesus told right before he went to Jerusalem. The first parable is the story of a woman who lost a coin, and she swept the whole house. She was looking for that lost coin in every corner, and finally, she found it. The second is about a shepherd who lost only one sheep. And that shepherd went out into the fields away from the rest of the flock and searched far and wide until he finally found that lost sheep. And the third is about a father who lost a son. More than death, being lost can be the most wretched feeling in life. That son who left, the one who claimed his inheritance in an untimely way, found that he was cut off from family, he was cut off from his religious tradition, he was cut off from his friends, he was lost in a pigsty feeding the pigs. But he had not fallen from grace, because he was still able to utter the name of the one who was with him from the very beginning. Father. Meanwhile, back at home, we find a father who has been spurned by his son. A father who has probably asked himself over and over and over again, was there something I could do? Is there something I can say? Should I go out and search on the countryside? How long is he going to be gone? A parent who has lost a child is in such grief. There's a hole, a cavernous hole in their heart. And over time, that father, the light in his eyes began to fade as he woke up each day. And each day was the same. It was a day without his son. And then we have the older son, the one who stayed home, the one who worked hard. That son watched the light fade from his father's eyes. He had worked hard his whole life. He had done what his father had asked him to do, and now he watched his father fading right before his eyes, fading in grief. Something that older son could not even help, could not even bring his father back to the joy that he once knew. It's a picture very different from the beginning. We have a lost son, a grieving father, and an angry, angry older son. Had they fallen from grace? Were they to be this way forever? No. That is the wonderful truth of this story. This is a story that resonates with all the most important experiences of our lives. The appeal of the faraway land, the joy of reunion, the strength of forgiveness. All of those things that we care about the most are all in this story. But it is a story of pain, too. However, it is not a story of falling from grace. We can fall from justice. We can fall from righteousness. We can fall, but we cannot fall from grace. And what an amazing grace it is. Did you see the scene? The father brought out the best that he had, the fatted calf, the finest ring, the most beautiful robe, sandals for his feet. One might have thought that when that younger son came home, that, well, maybe he might be put on a ration of bread and water for a while, and some hard work to boot. But no. Here we have a party, a celebration. Everyone is invited. What a scene. It's almost like a dream. Can we stop the story right here? Many times when I've read this passage, I've thought, well, we'll just cut off this last part here about, the other son. This is the way to end a story, with a party. But Luke's story does not stop there. We have to take a look at the miffed son. And the reason for that can be found in a hymn that is one of our favorites. There's a wideness in God's mercy, but it has a verse that we almost never sing in church. And the words in that verse are, "But we make God's love too narrow in a way that he would not accept. And we apply a strictness and a zeal that he would never own." The wideness in God's mercy is limited by us. And so it was with the miffed brother. The brother who did everything right. He stayed home. He worked hard. He earned that love that he got from his father, or so he thought. And he was very, very angry. He was angry in a way that a person gets when they feel that their love that they had worked on so hard to receive from someone else had been spurned, and that someone else had gotten more than they deserved. As my mother used to say, they got away with murder and then had a party. This is what was burning inside of that older brother. It was literally taking his life away from him. These are the feelings he had when he said to his father, "That son," notice he doesn't say my brother, "that son of yours squandered your inheritance, and you are giving him a celebration with a fatted calf? You never even gave a little party for me. I never even got a small goat of celebration." These are the feelings, the real feelings of a person whose life has been taken over by a ragged grief that he cannot see beyond. And yet, when his father welcomed him by going outside, by departing the party and going out the door where that brother was, you see now the one who is gone, you notice, is not the younger son. It is the older son who refused to come in. But the father went to him and he said, "Son, all that I have is yours. It always has been. It always will be. You are my son. There's enough love here. We didn't use it all up with a single party. There's enough love for you. There's enough love for your forgiveness. There's enough love to heal your grief. There's enough grace to welcome you home too. Yes, there is enough for you. Jesus told this story when he was on his way to Jerusalem because he wanted us all to remember that no one can fall from grace. And many of us who have lived the life of the older son, many of us who sometimes make God's love too narrow or apply God's rules with a strictness that God would not apply, we are the ones who need to hear this message, to widen our hearts, to receive all of God's children as God does. All of God's children, none of whom can ever fall from grace. God is here to help us because God is pursuing us. In Psalm 23, the words that we usually recite, surely the Lord is following us, we say, all the days of our lives. But the actual word in Hebrew translated is pursuing. God is pursuing us all of the days of our lives, even the days when we fear that we've fallen from grace. Or we are so angry and hurt and wounded by someone that we wish that that person might fall from grace. Even in those days, God is pursuing us too, saying, you have always been my child. I have always been with you. But we still have to celebrate because the one who was lost is found. The one who was dead is alive. Let us rejoice, for we believe in the resurrection